Picture a machine longer than a blue whale, heavier than 40 elephants, packing 2 diesel engines under a single roof, and it still wasn't the biggest ever built. For decades, engineers in America and the Soviet Union waged a quiet war of horsepower, bolting together steel monsters that dragged 10,000-ton trains across mountains and frozen wilderness. Some were triumphs, some were spectacular failures, all of them were enormous. These are the 10 biggest diesel locomotives ever built. Number 10. GE U50. Let's start the countdown in the early 1960s, deep in the middle of what rail fans still call the horsepower race. General Electric was hungry. For years it had built engines for other companies, but now it wanted to topple the giants, EMD and ALCO, on its own terms. Its opening shot was a genuine monster, the GE U50. The U50 was an 8-axle, 5,000 horsepower beast, and it earned every bit of that number by cheating in the most honest way possible. It simply carried 2 engines instead of 1. Under that long car body sat a pair of 16-cylinder GE FDL diesel engines, each pumping out 2,500 horsepower, mounted on one frame. Here's the detail that gives the U50 its personality. It rode on 4 2-axle trucks grouped into pairs and linked by huge span bolsters, giving it that unusual B-blas-B-B-blee-blay arrangement. And those trucks weren't new. GE recycled them from Union Pacific's scrapped gas turbine locomotives from the 1950s. Nothing wasted. At just over 83 feet long, the U50 was a serious piece of machinery. Union Pacific bought the lion's share and nicknamed them U-boats. Southern Pacific took a few too, and their crews had a different name for them, Baby Hueys. 26 were built between 1963 and 1965. To put its muscle in perspective, the U50 could generate a starting tractive effort of around 160,000 pounds, the raw grunt needed to drag a heavy freight train up from a dead stop. That is exactly why Union Pacific wanted machines like this. The railroad's operating department had a long-standing love affair with enormous single locomotives, going all the way back to its steam-era giants. The logic was simple. Fewer, bigger locomotives meant fewer crews, fewer units to couple together, and lower operating costs. At least, that was the theory. GE later tried a slimmed-down 6-axle version called the U50C. 40 of those were built for Union Pacific, but the weight-saving experiments there, especially the switch to aluminum wiring, caused electrical fires, cracked truck frames, melted dynamic brake grids, and endless headaches. Every single U50 and U50C was eventually scrapped. Not one survives. But as an opening statement in GE's war for the main line, the U50 was unforgettable. Number 9. EMD DD35A. If GE was going to build a double-engine giant, EMD, the electromotive division of General Motors and the undisputed king of American diesels, was not about to sit still. Its answer came in the form of the DD35 family, and the flagship was the DD35A. The DD35A was a true DD locomotive, meaning it rode on 2 enormous 4-axle trucks, 8 powered axles in total. Inside sat 2 turbocharged 16-cylinder EMD 16567 D3A engines, together producing 5,000 horsepower. This thing stretched more than 88 feet from coupler to coupler and weighed a staggering 519,000 pounds, over 259 tons of American steel. Now here's a piece of trivia that trips up a lot of people. The very first DD35 units, built in 1963, didn't even have a cab. They were B units, cableless boosters designed to be sandwiched between conventional locomotives that provided the controls. 30 of those cables DD35 boosters were built for Union Pacific and Southern Pacific. It was only in 1965 that EMD added a wide, full-width cab and created the DD35A, a locomotive that could finally lead a train on its own. 15 of these cab-equipped units were built, all for Union Pacific, numbered 70 through 84. The cableless DD35 boosters, by contrast, were split between Union Pacific and Southern Pacific. Riding along in the middle of locomotive consists. The engineering behind the DD35A tells you a lot about this era. Rather than invent an all-new locomotive, EMD essentially took the guts of 2 of its proven SD40 generation road units and mounted them on one gigantic frame riding on 4-axle trucks. It was a brilliant, cost-effective way to double the power without doubling the risk. Reuse what already works and just build it bigger. The result carried more than 8,200 gallons of fuel and towered over 16 feet tall. Like so many of these experimental behemoths, the DD35As lived hard and died young. They were maintenance intensive, they were niche, and once newer, more capable designs arrived, they had no future. Every one of them was scrapped. But the DD35A proved a critical point. EMD could build a double diesel monster, and that lesson would lead directly to one of the most famous locomotives in American history. Hold that thought. Number 8. ALCO Century 855. Now we come to a legend of failure. A locomotive so ambitious, so overreaching that it helped push its own manufacturer toward the grave. This is the ALCO Century 855. The American Locomotive Company, ALCO, was the proud old firm that had built steam giants like Union Pacific's Big Boy. But by the 1960s, ALCO was fighting for its life against EMD and GE. When Union Pacific went looking for ultra-high horsepower locomotives to conquer its overland route through the Rocky Mountains, ALCO decided to build the most powerful diesel locomotive the world had ever seen. And on paper, it did exactly that. Delivered in June 1964, the Century 855 packed two 16-cylinder ALCO 251C engines onto one frame for a combined 5,500 horsepower. At the moment it rolled out of ALCO's Schenectady, New York plant, it was the most powerful single-unit diesel locomotive ever built, a record it held until a certain Union Pacific icon dethroned it a few years later. The C855 was gigantic, around 86 feet long and weighing over 551,000 pounds. It rode on four two-axle trucks in that span-bolster B+BB arrangement, borrowed from Union Pacific's turbine locomotives. But here is where ambition collided with reality. To save money, ALCO used aluminum wiring throughout the locomotive. That aluminum wiring had a nasty habit of catching fire. The double-engine electrical systems were fiendishly complex and unreliable. Only 3 C855s were ever built, 2 cab units numbered 60 and 61, and a single cableless B unit, number 60B. There's a striking thing about that decision too. Union Pacific hadn't just gone to ALCO. It had deliberately commissioned experimental super locomotives from all 3 major builders at once. EMD delivered the DD35 series, GE built the U50, and ALCO answered with the C855. It was a 3-way contest for a single railroad's affection, and the C855 was ALCO's swing for the fences. Despite its jaw-dropping power and its enormous tractive effort, the whole class was a disaster in service. All 3 units were scrapped by early 1972, less than 8 years after they were built. And ALCO, the company that had built some of the most magnificent steam locomotives in history, stopped building locomotives entirely in 1969. The Century 855 stands as a monument to a beautiful doomed idea. Number 7. Baldwin Centipede. Let's rewind further to the 1940s and to a machine that looks like nothing else that has ever run on rails. This is the Baldwin DR128-1500/2, known to everyone simply as the Centipede. The nickname is perfect. This locomotive had so many axles set in a nearly unbroken line beneath its long body that it looked like the segmented legs of a centipede. Its wheel arrangement was the exotic 2D+D2, and the full model number breaks down beautifully. Diesel road locomotive, 12 axles, 8 of them powered, with 2 engines of 1,500 horsepower each. That gave a single centipede unit 3,000 horsepower from a pair of Baldwin 608 SC turbocharged 8-cylinder engines. But these machines were designed to run coupled in permanent pairs, and a 2-unit set delivered a combined 6,000 horsepower, a colossal figure for the 1940s, and it was physically enormous. A single centipede was 91 feet 6 inches long and weighed around 595,000 pounds. That makes it by body length one of the longest single diesel units on this entire list, built decades before anyone else attempted machines this size. There's an even wilder chapter to this story. Back in 1943, Baldwin had actually built an experimental centipede demonstrator rated at a mind-boggling 6,000 horsepower in a single unit, an almost science fiction figure for the middle of World War II. The production centipedes that followed were more restrained, but no less ambitious, and they were fast, at least on paper. Depending on the gearing a railroad chose, a centipede was theoretically capable of extraordinary speeds. Some gearing options were rated for triple-digit top speeds. The Pennsylvania Railroad geared its fleet more conservatively and used them in fast passenger and freight service. Each centipede cost the Pennsylvania Railroad around $287,000, an enormous sum at the time. Baldwin was America's greatest steam locomotive builder trying to make the leap into the diesel age, and the Centipede was its bold opening bet. Built between December 1945 and July 1948, Around 54 units went to just 3 customers: the Pennsylvania Railroad, the Seaboard Airline, and the National Railways of Mexico. Sadly, they leaked oil, leaked coolant, belched smoke, and were dogged by unreliability. EMD's products were simply better. Most Centipedes ended their days demoted to lowly helper service, shoving trains up grades. Every last one was scrapped. Not a single Centipede survives today. But for sheer jaw-dropping strangeness, nothing else on rails has ever quite matched it. Number 6. EMD SD90MAC-H. Now we jump forward half a century, to the 1990s, when the horsepower race reignited, this time with a single monstrous engine instead of 2. First up in this modern chapter is the EMD SD90MAC-H. By the mid-1990s, railroads wanted one locomotive that could do the work of many, and both EMD and GE raced to build a 6,000 horsepower single-engine machine. EMD's high-horsepower version, the SD90MAC-H, was powered by a brand-new 16-cylinder engine called the 16265H, often just called the H engine, producing a full 6,000 horsepower. This was the most powerful single-engine diesel EMD ever built, and it was among the largest, measuring 80 feet 2 inches long and weighing around 425,000 pounds. It rode on 6 axles with modern Siemens AC traction motors and radial steering trucks, and it could produce 200,000 pounds of starting tractive effort. But, and there's always a but with these giants, the new H engine was troublesome and unreliable. It was so problematic that EMD eventually gave up on it. Many units were actually delivered or built with the older proven 710 engine at a reduced 4,300 horsepower. Those were the SD9043MAC variant, which soldiered on far more successfully. The customers for the SD90 family were a who's who of North American heavy haulers, Union Pacific and Canadian Pacific among them, along with big leasing fleets, and some units even made it to Australia with Fortescue Metals Group. Across all its variants, hundreds of SD90 type locomotives were built. The full 6,000 horsepower SD90MAC-H, along with its later SD90MAC-H2 revision, remains the most powerful locomotive EMD ever produced. But the reliability problems, combined with the arrival of strict Tier 2 emissions rules in the United States, doomed the big engine version. Most were retired, rebuilt, or permanently downrated to the reliable 710 engine. It was a technological high watermark that the industry ultimately walked away from. Powerful proof that raw horsepower is worthless if the machine won't stay running. Number 5. GE AC 6000 CW. For every EMD monster, there was a GE monster built to match it. And in the great 6,000 horsepower duel of the 1990s, GE's champion was the AC 6000 CW. Developed in partnership with the German engine giant Deutz MWM, the AC 6000 CW was built around a huge 16-cylinder GE 7HDL engine rated at a full 6,000 horsepower. That made it the most powerful single-engine diesel-electric locomotive ever placed in service in North America. It rode on 6 axles with AC traction motors, measured 76 feet long, and weighed in at well over 420,000 pounds. More than 300 were built between 1995 and 2001, a far bigger production run than most machines on this list, and they went to heavy-haul railroads that needed brute force, CSX, Union Pacific, and the mining giant BHP in the searing heat of Western Australia, where they hauled monstrous iron ore trains across the Pilbara. Its AC traction system could deliver a continuous tractive effort of around 166,000 pounds and a starting effort near 188,000 pounds, numbers built for one thing and one thing only: moving impossibly heavy loads. But history rhymed. Just like EMD's H engine, GE's brand new 7HDL power plant struggled. And there was a deeper problem. The locomotive's 6 traction motors physically couldn't handle the full 6,000 horsepower without overheating their insulation. The engine had the muscle, but the electrical system was the bottleneck. The solution was humbling. Across the fleet, the AC 6000 CWs were quietly derated to 4,400 horsepower, which made them essentially identical in output to GE's smaller, more sensible AC 4400 CW, except heavier and longer. Most have now been retired, scrapped, or rebuilt into more modern locomotives. One lone survivor, GECX 6002, is preserved at a museum in Pennsylvania. The AC 6000 CW was the peak of the single-engine horsepower race, and the moment the industry realized it had pushed one engine about as far as it could go. Number 4. Soviet TE3. Now we cross the Iron Curtain, because the story of the biggest diesels was never just an American one. The Soviet Union built giants on a scale, and in numbers the West never came close to matching, and the machine that started it all was the mighty TE3. The TE3 was a two-section permanently coupled locomotive. Think of it as two locomotives sharing one identity, each with only a single cab, facing outward. Together the two sections produced 4,000 horsepower from a pair of Kharkiv 2D100 engines. Now those engines are fascinating in their own right. They were opposed piston, two-stroke diesels, a design where two pistons slam toward each other inside a single cylinder. It's an old, brutally powerful configuration, and it gave early Soviet diesels their distinctive roar and their famous clouds of black smoke. What makes the TE3 belong on any biggest list isn't just the size of one machine, it's the sheer staggering scale of the program. Built from 1953 all the way to 1973, the Soviets constructed roughly 6,800 pairs of TE3s. That's over 13,000 individual sections. It was, by a wide margin, one of the most produced heavy diesel locomotives in the history of the entire world. Each section rolled on its own six-axle Coco trucks, and the pair could hit 100 kilometers per hour. Building took place across multiple Soviet plants, Kolomna, Luhansk, and Kharkiv, spreading production over 2 decades to keep up with the sheer, insatiable demand of a dieselizing superpower. The TE3 dieselized a nation that spanned 11 time zones. It replaced steam across the vast Soviet rail network, hauling freight through everything from the deserts of Central Asia to the frozen expanses of Siberia. It wasn't the single most powerful machine of its day, but as a fleet of giants, nothing on Earth could match its scale. And it laid the foundation for the truly monstrous multi-section locomotives that were still to come. The machines that would leave every American design in the dust. Number 3. EMD DDA40X Centennial. And now we arrive at the icon. If you ask an American rail fan to name the biggest diesel locomotive ever built, this is the answer you will hear 9 times out of 10. This is the EMD DDA40X, the legendary Centennial. Everything about this machine is superlative. It is the most powerful diesel-electric locomotive ever built on a single frame, a title it has held for over half a century and holds to this very day. Under one roof sit two 16-cylinder 645E3A engines, together producing 6,600 earth-shaking horsepower. It is also the longest single-unit diesel locomotive ever constructed, stretching an incredible 98 feet 5 inches, that's 30 meters of continuous steel. It weighed over 545,000 pounds and could hit 90 miles per hour. The frames were so enormous that EMD's own factory couldn't build them. They had to be fabricated by an outside company in Chicago. And that X in the name, it stood for experimental, because these locomotives were rolling test beds for new technology that would define EMD's future. The name Centennial comes from a beautiful piece of history. In 1969, Union Pacific was celebrating the 100th anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike, the moment in 1869 when America's first transcontinental railroad was completed. EMD rushed to finish the very first unit, number 6,900, in time for the ceremony. 47 Centennials were built in total, numbered 6,900 to 6,946, delivered between 1969 and 1971. The Centennials were also pioneers, loaded with experimental electronics, modular control circuits for easier troubleshooting, and self-diagnostic features. They served as rolling laboratories for technology that EMD would later fold into its famous -2 production line. In other words, this giant didn't just haul freight. It helped shape the future of every EMD locomotive that came after it. For years they ruled Union Pacific's fastest freight trains, often paired with high-speed Fast 40 units on priority runs, each Centennial racking up well over 1 million miles. By 1980, though, an economic downturn had parked the whole fleet in storage, and when business rebounded, only about half could be revived. And here's the best part. Unlike almost every other giant on this list, the Centennial was not scrapped into oblivion. More than a dozen survive today, preserved in museums across the country, and one of them, number 6,936, was kept in full working order by Union Pacific for special trains for decades. The Centennial isn't just the biggest single-frame diesel ever built. It's a survivor and a genuine American legend. Number 2. Soviet 410s. The Centennial holds the record for the biggest single-frame locomotive. But if we lift that restriction, if we ask what's the biggest diesel locomotive ever built, full stop, then we have to go back behind the Iron Curtain to a Cold War monster that dwarfs everything we've seen so far. This is the Soviet 410s. Remember the multi-section idea from the TE3? The Soviets took that concept and pushed it to an almost absurd extreme. The 410s was a 4-section locomotive, 4 full diesel units, permanently coupled and controlled as one. It rode on 24 axles, 24, and it produced a colossal 8,824 kilowatts, that's around 11,833 horsepower, from 4 separate engine sections working in unison. Let that length sink in. The 410s stretched 68 meters, roughly 223 feet. That's more than twice the length of the mighty Centennial. Its adhesion weight alone was 414 tons. This was quite simply the most powerful diesel locomotive produced anywhere in the world in the entire 20th century. Why build something this outrageous? The answer is one word: the BAM. The Baikal-Amur main line is a legendary Soviet railway hacked through thousands of kilometers of the harshest, most remote terrain in Siberia and the Russian Far East. Permafrost, mountains, forests, and brutal cold. Moving heavy freight through that wilderness demanded almost unlimited traction, and the 4-section 14s was the answer. Think about the elegance of the idea, even as the machine itself was brutally huge. Instead of designing a brand new record-breaking engine, the expensive, risky path the Americans kept chasing with their H engines and 7 HDLs, the Soviets simply took a proven single-section design and coupled 4 of them together into one controllable unit. It's modular thinking taken to its logical extreme. Need more power? Add another section. The engineering risk stays low, only the length grows. 25 of these Leviathans were built at the Luhansk plant in 1983. They were rare, they were regional, and they were purpose-built for one of the toughest railroading environments on the planet. The 4-Tsens proves a fundamental truth about Soviet and Russian engineering philosophy. When the West was chasing efficiency and a single perfect engine, the East just kept bolting on more sections, and it worked. Number 1. Russian 3T25K2M Peresvet, which brings us finally to the top of the mountain. The most powerful diesel locomotive running on Earth today, and the modern heir to that Soviet tradition of sheer, unapologetic size. This is the Russian 3T25K2M, named Peresvet after a warrior monk from Russian legend. The Peresvet is a 3-section locomotive riding on 18 axles. Each of its 3 sections carries its own diesel engine, and together they produce a staggering 9,300 kilowatts, roughly 12,472 horsepower. That makes it the single most powerful diesel locomotive in service anywhere in the former Soviet region, and one of the most powerful operational diesel locomotives in the entire world. Its numbers are the stuff of engineering fantasy. It can generate a starting tractive effort of 838 kilonewtons, and it was built for one heroic purpose: to haul freight trains weighing up to 7,100 tons through the same merciless BAM route its 4-section ancestors once conquered, the frozen mountainous vastness of eastern Russia, where temperatures swing wildly and the terrain fights you every mile. Here's a fascinating twist of modern history. When the first Peresvets were built starting in 2017, each section was powered by an American engine, the Gevo 12, built by GE and Wabtec. But after international sanctions made those imported engines impossible to maintain, the Russians engineered a purely domestic successor, the 3T28, introduced in 2022. That newer machine swaps in a fully Russian-built engine while keeping the same 3-section, heavy-haul design, producing around 8,550 kilowatts, or roughly 11,625 horsepower, entirely without Western parts. And these machines aren't museum pieces or one-off experiments, they're working locomotives, in active production, doing a real job right now. The first batch of a dozen Peresvets entered service on the East Siberian and Far Eastern railways, and private mining operators have since ordered their own to haul coal out of the remote Elga deposit in Russia's Far East. To give a sense of the global picture, the most powerful diesels running in China, the HXN3 and HXN5, sit around 6,300 horsepower each, and India's top diesel, the WDG6G, produces about 6,000. The 3-section Peresvet roughly doubles those figures. So there it is, the crown. Not a sleek record-setter chasing speed, but a brutal purpose-built freight monster designed to drag impossible loads across one of the harshest railways ever constructed. The Peresvet is the current king of the biggest diesel locomotives on the planet. Which of these monsters is your favorite? Were you rooting for the American icons or the Soviet leviathans? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through the giants of the rails, hit that subscribe button because there are plenty more incredible machines still to explore. Thanks for watching.